We have a fantastic keynote speaker on our agenda next. I am excited to welcome L'Oreal Stepney, Director at the Texas Water Development Board. She was first appointed to that role just this last December by Governor Abbott and was quickly reappointed after that. Prior to being a director at the Development Board, she spent almost 30 years at TCEQ in a variety of roles related to water, most recently serving as the Deputy Director of the Office of Water since 2009, so really not all that recently, in that position for a long time. She is obviously someone who has been steeped in water her whole career and a contributor to the water community over these last decades. Those contributions were most recently recognized. She was the 2022 Rainmaker of the Year award winner by the Texas Water Foundation. Please join me in welcoming Director L'Oreal Stepney.
Good morning. That's good. I was wondering, I'm the last keynote of the day, but y'all are excited, right? All right, that's much better. Well, football season is starting. Do I have Longhorns in the audience? Now, y'all, I have a split household now. I'm a Longhorn alumni, but I'm a mom, I'm an OU mom sooner. I know, right? So we're gonna have fun on game day. What do y'all think? Well, thank you, Leah, for the invitation. I appreciate it so much. As the newest member of the Water Development Board, I'm just excited about the role and all of the good things that our wonderful staff at the Water Development Board do for groundwater. Groundwater is very important. It's, we talk a lot about surface water, but groundwater is one of our most important pieces of solving our water supply issues in the state. At the Water Development Board, we want to focus on securing water for Texas, and groundwater plays an important and key role in doing that. At the Water Development Board, right now we have about 440 staff. We're going to get more, and we have a portfolio of about $19 billion. So we're a tiny agency, kind of, small agency, but with big responsibilities, and our staff are up for the job, as well as the board members and our executive administrator. So this morning, I would like to talk about some of the key board functions that are important to me, and what I think is also very important is stakeholder involvement, as well as some of the things that were on our list for the legislative session. So you guys may have seen this before, but the Water Development Board, we were started in 1957 in response to a devastating drought. Boy, what's old is new again, right? We're in the middle of a drought right now. I noticed that Austin, where I'm from has had 45 days over 100 degrees. It's been pretty tough. Even in Dallas, my mom lives in Dallas, 110 the other day. And so with respect to drought, planning and preparing for drought or extreme conditions is very important. And the board, the Water Development Board, really serves three key functions. We have science, planning, and financing, all with the goal of securing water for Texas. With respect to science, we look at population projections, the location of water supplies, monitoring, modeling, certainly through the DFC GAMS process. We are heavily involved with groundwater. With planning, ensuring that the science supports our planning efforts and we are able to convey that information to our local stakeholders. And of course, Texas is an arid state, but we also see huge flood events, right? Harvey, Memorial Day floods, and many others. And so our agency looks at those issues as well. And then funding. I'll spend a little bit of time on planning and financing. We are a bank, and we've been able to fund many water, wastewater, and flood-related projects, and we're pretty proud of that. And we have another number of funding opportunities and resources for stakeholders to come visit with us about. And overall, what I want the takeaway to be, many of you know this already, but I think it bears saying again and repeating, is that it's important to me that the Water Development Board continues to be a resource for all of you, a resource for Texas and a resource for our stakeholders. So the state water plan, our planning function, again, in response to severe drought, we've been planning to meet the water needs since the 1950s, but that was top down, and now since the late 1990s, 1997, we've been bottom-up approach. The population is expected to expand to 51 million by 2070, and that means that we need a reliable water supply for our economy, for drinking water, for population, for natural resources, for agriculture, irrigation. All of those things are really, really important. I managed the drought for TCEQ that lasted, it seemed like forever. It was only supposed to last 6 months, but it lasted from 2010-ish to 2015. And I can tell you from personal experience, it's really hard when you have 100 water systems that have less than 180 days worth of water left. And so the importance of planning ahead of time, you know, when we are getting rain, what your water future looks like is just very, very important, because it's really hard to come up with solutions when you get down to those points. Or if we also had priority calls, 48 priority calls during that time period, and so very difficult decisions to make. And I'm very, very excited about, on the groundwater side, how stakeholders have come together through the planning process. I just think it's very, very important as, again, we as a state try to prepare to be as drought resilient as we can be. A couple of snapshots from the state water plan. We have 5,800 strategies, 7.7 million acre feet in 2070, and then 2,400 projects that are at a cost of $80 billion, and we've identified a potential shortage of 6.9 million acre feet in 50 years, and that's to meet conditions that would equal the drought of record. $80 billion based on 2018 amounts. And we've seen the interest rates have gone up, the cost of construction has gone up, and so planning now and putting as many of those strategies in place now, or projects in place now, is really, really important. I know John Dubnik was on the agenda from our staff, and he's talked about drought, but I just wanted to mention a couple of things. So, of course, our agency participates at the state level. We participate with TDM, Texas Division of Emergency Management, with the Drought Preparedness Council, also with TCEQ, with the Emergency Drinking Water Task Force. So I think the message there is that we're always engaged. We're always engaged in the planning process, and then on a daily basis, responding to ever-present conditions in different parts of the state. Also, I wanted to point out that we have lots of tools available on our website, from drought dashboards to weekly reports, outreach activities. All of those things are available and a resource to you and your clients if needed. Also, with respect to the state water plan, you know, we have Chapter 7 that really kind of points the local entities, the regional water planning groups, into thinking about drought, thinking about, you know, what should our triggers be? What about plans for water suppliers, drought contingency plans, alternatives? As I mentioned before, it's really hard to find in some cases when you only have a sole source of water. Maybe you only have one well or a couple of wells, and maybe some of those wells have arsenic or other constituents in there. So it's really important to plan ahead for those, and that is covered in Chapter 7. In some of our regional planning groups, they've really expressed a desire to planning for more than the drought of record, having an additional buffer or an additional safety factor. And so, you know, we're supportive of that. Again, a local effort, and we here at the state level are here to support those efforts. You guys have seen this map before, our groundwater management areas. I just think it's really great. We have 16 of these groups, but I think it's really great that you can see different parts, different regions, different aquifers in Texas are all covered and, again, managed at the local level. This summer, our staff, there were 2 joint groundwater planning roundtable discussions with our staff as well as the groundwater management area coordinators, the Texas Alliance of Groundwater Districts, and Again, we all are coming together in an adaptive management process, right? To share experiences, extend best practices, improve our processes, and just see what we can all do better. Update guidance documents, and as a result, some of the action items that we have are to create and update some of the guidance documents that are used in the process, as well as checklists and templates. And then also consider implementing a socioeconomic tool. All of these things I think are really great, and I think it's a tribute, I've said this before, to all of our planning efforts at the state level and in Texas, that we're able to work with local stakeholders. And again, we always want to do better, we always want to change, we always want to update and adapt. And so I think there's a desire to have more and more of these conversations with stakeholders. You know, we all heavily rely on groundwater across the state. It's certainly, you see the percentages here, 53% of all of our freshwater use in Texas is groundwater, 75% for ag, 28% for public water supply. And then in rural Texas, their main source of water is groundwater. And so I think this is just, it just illustrates the point that we have to pay attention and be mindful of all of the needs and how groundwater is helping to support those needs. Moving on, I wanted to talk about our third bucket, which is the funding bucket. We're a bank. You know, we take pride in that. We're able to provide financial assistance for water infrastructure projects. And the ones in green I just wanted to highlight because they may be more relevant for this group. I'll touch on the other ones briefly. The State Water Implementation Fund for Texas is a hallmark program for the state. The voters of Texas agreed to a $2 billion worth of seed money from the Rainy Day Fund back in 2013. And we've used that money to fund $11.5 billion in commitments across the state. The state water plan is the basis for that fund. Projects have to be in that fund in order to get funding under SWIFT. And the money has been invested, and so right now we have about 1.75 of the $2 billion remaining in the fund. So we're just leveraging money every year to support projects, water projects in Texas. The Economically Distressed Areas Program, EDAP, you know, we were able to fund some projects this year. We hadn't done that since 2018, and we're pretty proud of that and excited about that. And here we can provide grants and loans for water and wastewater projects to economically distressed areas. There's some specific income requirements that have to be met, and also the counties have to have model subdivision rules, but you know, we're excited about keeping that program moving. The Rural Water Assistance Fund, it was designed to assist small rural utilities with low-cost financing for water and wastewater projects. You know, we've had the program, but there wasn't really funding for it, and so we worked with the legislature. Hopefully, we'll be able to transfer some of the money if the Texas Water Fund proposition passes in November to help with rural systems. And then you'll see in blue the Texas Water Development Fund, D-Fund, kind of you can do water and wastewater and have one loan and one project. It's kind of our oldest program. And then state participation helps us right-size projects. The state takes ownership, a portion of the ownership in the project, and then it's when the community is ready to increase their share of the project, then they purchase that back from the state. And then our newest one is the Flood Infrastructure Fund. We've awarded or committed over $500 million to projects that basically help to mitigate flood and protect property and hopefully protect the loss of life. Really important project. We're also working on the first state flood plan. We'll have that by next year. And you know, from the ground up, our staff took the program. We'd never had it before last few years, hired staff, developed the science where the science didn't exist, and you know, now we have regional flood plans, and those will be rolled up into the state flood plan next year. We also work with the federal partners. Congress appropriates funds in these different categories. I wanted to point out the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, and we also have the Clean Water State Revolving Fund as well. But for drinking water, assist communities in providing low-cost financing. So if a community wants to, put in a groundwater well or a well field or extend distribution lines, they can apply for funding under the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. The ranking is, a lot of it's focused on enforcement issues that those communities may have with the TCEQ. And, there's an intended use plan associated with that. But certainly, we've done good work with the Drinking Water SRF program over the years. I'll just quickly mention on the clean water side for wastewater, similar fund with the Clean Water SRF. IIJA funding, we've been using that to really fill the gap. Congress has not appropriated in the last few years as much money as they historically done for the SRFs. So we've been backfilling with IIJA money in order to move projects forward. This is a concern for us, and we've been trying to educate congressional members about that because the SRFs are really kind of the foundation for all of the federal program funding that we've done for many, many, many years. We've also, under IIJA, we went out for an intended use plan for lead service line inventories and replacement, as also there was another part for emerging contaminants. Something new and different. We've never done that before this year. With respect to lead, we saw a request for $4 billion. We have, I think it's $222 million this year, and a similar allocation over the next couple of years. But big need, not quite as much funding, but we're getting started with the process. And let's see. Yeah, I wanted to briefly talk about the legislative session this time. We were very fortunate. We were appreciative of the legislature for helping us with some of our funding needs for projects as well as for our staffing considerations. Just quickly, for project management and risk mitigation, we received $15.9 million, and that's really to help with the bottlenecks in the system. When entities submit applications to our agency, we want to be able to process those as efficiently as possible and to know where they are and the associated milestones in the process. And so we're building a project management system to do that. We also gained some FTEs to help with that as well. For water supply planning, additional funding, $5.2 million for outreach activities to help with regional planning efforts. For rural assistance, $4.8 million and 14 FTEs to help with that. We may be able to get some additional funding from if the Texas Water Fund passes this November. And then also $1 million for data enhancement and modernization, and a lot of that's for groundwater monitoring as well as the water data for Texas to make sure that we have sufficient data and the correct data sets for groundwater and some of our other programs. With respect to flood, we did receive money for staffing, but we also received $624 million to fund the flood infrastructure fund. So we'll be doing some new allocations and making some additional solicitations available through the IUP process for that. And then debt service and match for the EDAP program and SRF. The State Water Plan talks about many different strategies, but, I wanted to point out, and the panel right before this was talking about aquifer storage and recovery, and certainly that and desal are just strategies that folks are starting to look to, because in some cases there may not be enough surface water available to supply the needs of those communities. And our agency, of course, has done some studies to identify potential, I'll say, the best spots in different aquifers for aquifer storage and recovery. And, we'll continue that effort, and, we have resources that are available online to help any questions that you guys may have on that. Desalination, I took a trip down to the valley, and it just brought home to me the importance of desalination in our mix, in our toolbox when we're looking at water supply needs. I visited the Southmost Regional Water Authority, and Brownsville PUB was an exceptional host, so thank you very much. But they're using brackish groundwater from a well field that they have to supplement the water, to supplement their water needs, because the Rio Grande is, because of issues with Mexico and plus the drought, it's not as reliable as it used to be. And so they're firming up their water supply. And the Water Development Board funded the microfiltration project that's right behind that cute picture of me with my hard hat on. But and all of the folks down there, they were great hosts. But it just really brought home to me the importance of not only like seawater desal, but inland desal too, brackish groundwater. So SB 28, the Texas Water Fund, signed by the governor June 9th. And again, I was there. Y'all see the cute girl with the green dress? There's two green dresses. I have on the black jacket. But it's pretty cool, right? On that day, the governor signed the broadband bill as well. And so $1 billion potentially invested for Texas and the Texas Water Fund, kind of an umbrella fund where we can transfer money to different programs, different parts of our funding structure. So that's really exciting. And then the Water for Texas new water supply for Texas Fund, where 25% of that $1 billion can be dedicated to new water supply. I think the goal is to, kind of jumpstart everybody thinking about new water options over the next 10 years to meet the water needs. But yeah, it was so great because through the whole process, through Chairman Perry and Chairman King's leadership, shepherding the bill through the legislature, and then the governor signing the bill, it just really speaks to the leadership of the legislature and the governor and Texas's commitment to, fund our water needs. And so we'll see what happens in November, but the Water Development Board will be ready to implement, if the proposition passes, we'll be ready to implement any changes that are needed and to get the funding out. And that's all I have. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm happy if we have time to answer any questions.